You're listening to the Chopped Podcast, episode number 24. Olé! Hey everyone, I'm Marley of the blog Namely Marley. Thanks for joining me today for the 24th episode of the Chopped Podcast. This is the podcast designed for people just like you, bloggers who love food. Each week I'm sharing thoughts and stories, interviews, everything related to food blogging so we can all learn together about what works with food blogging and even a little bit about what doesn't. Today's guests are Denise Woodward and Lenny Ferreira of the site Shea Us and also of the site Learn to Shoot Food. Denise and Lenny and I are talking about tips for adding video to your food blog. And I'm going to keep today's intro really short because the interview is really fun, but there's a lot to it. So I don't want to keep you from it, and I don't want to keep you too long as well. I respect your time, but I just want to give you a little bit of background. I met Denise and Lenny at Mixed Conference about 3 years ago, and I joined their Google Plus community that they created on helping people add videos to their sites. They are definitely passionate and knowledgeable about video production and editing, and they're great teachers. So I know a lot of food bloggers are really interested in this topic, so I'm excited to share this interview with you today. Besides, Denise and Lenny are just so fun. There's a lot of laughing in our discussion, and I just think laughter is like the perfect ingredient to a great conversation. So I hope you enjoy it. Also, Denise and Lenny are going to be speaking about food videography at Chopped Conference this year. I'm so excited. So don't forget to mark your calendars for October 15th to the 16th so you can meet Denise and Lenny in person and join in on the great conversation and fun as well. So let's go straight to that interview today. Today's intro shout out is to Gail of the site Pumpkin and Spice. Gail says she was listening to the Chopped podcast recently while purchasing her Chopped conference ticket. Oh, Gail, you know the way to my heart. Can't wait to meet you soon. So what are you doing while listening to the Chopped podcast? Send me a shout out on Twitter or Instagram using hashtag ChoppedCon, and maybe I'll feature you and your site in an upcoming episode. But for today, in honor of Gail, everybody open up your laptops, head over to choppedcon.com, get out your earbuds, and let's talk about all things food blogging and so much more. Hey everyone, I'm excited to have Denise and Lenny of the site Shea Us on the show today. Denise and Lenny, welcome to the Chopped podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks. We're excited to be a part of this.
Excellent. Well, there's a lot I want to talk with you about, especially when we're talking about your blog and your video production work and things like that. But first, let's just take a step back and let's talk about how all this began. So why did you guys decide to start a food blog?
Well, I actually started the food blog without Lenny knowing about 8 years ago, and it started as a marketing experiment for our business. At the time, I didn't know what a food blog was, and I happened to be looking for a recipe on how to make macaroons, and I stumbled upon a Shea Pim and my tartlet and simply recipes, and was intrigued that these everyday people were writing about food. And I was like, you know what, maybe I'll try this out and see if I can figure it out, which was interesting because I didn't know, I'm not technical at all. I didn't know how to start a blog. I didn't know what a blog was. I definitely didn't know how to do a website. So I kind of did it on the sly for about a month. I just photographed our dinners. I didn't write much about it. I just posted what we had for dinner, and that was it. And after 30 days, I told Lenny about it, and he was kind of like, whoa, I was wondering what you're doing on the computer all the time.
Yeah, it was a bit weird because she spent way more time on the computer than I did, and she doesn't have a tech job.
What is she doing?
Maybe she's having an affair. That's certainly going to free up some time for me because I was riding my bike a whole bunch back then, and so it actually worked out pretty well in that she was cooking a ton of food and I was eating a ton of food.
But you were bicycling it off, right?
I was, a lifetime ago.
So I was going to kill the site at that point because I'd figured out what I wanted to figure out. But at that point, this is 8 years ago when there weren't a lot of blogs.
Yeah.
And people started reaching out and saying, that looked really great. Can I get a recipe? And relationships started developing, so I continued it, and now we're where we are 8 years later.
It's like you might have wanted to get at it at that point, but you couldn't.
I kind of liked it.
Okay.
So I really didn't, but it was kind of an experiment. So I was like, all right, the experiment's over.
Well, and it kind of became an experiment for me in that I built my first website like in '94, and we're building microsites for like people. I mean, just all video related, which we'll get into. But I was curious to see how someone with no technical ability was able to build something that I thought that was amazing, because it's really a pain in the buttocks. Because we can't use that other word.
That's
and
right.
so I just said, look, why don't you just kind of keep going with it? So then it became an experiment for me, because that's a convenient way of saying I don't want to have anything to do with this. I'd like to see how you keep going. I'm joking. But I was curious, and I would help with some server stuff and yada, yada, yada. I prefer to be behind the scenes. So the challenge for me was I am private, in that I don't like to have anything about me online necessarily.
Yeah.
And I had been trying to hide that for a long time. And all of a sudden my name's popping up everywhere.
Is that why you started it on the sly, Denise?
No, I just wanted to see if I could do it myself, really.
Yeah, she did. It was awesome. I mean, I thought it was great. So that kind of kept it going, and then I got a bit more involved. But I mean, it's, the face of it is primarily Denise.
I love these kind of couple dynamics, though. I mean, I'm the same as you, Denise. I'm constantly doing these kind of things, and then I'll tell my husband a month later, guess what I've been doing?
Yeah. We do that too, but we never get to the part where we say, guess what I've been doing? Kidding.
Yeah. So were you always interested in cooking, Denise, or is that something that, just because you started looking at these other sites, you got interested in it?
No, I've always been interested, and my parents are divorced, so like my mom worked and my dad worked. So when I was spending time with each parent, I would want to eat better food than top ramen. So I just started cooking, and my grandmothers and great grandmothers and great aunts all cooked together. So I was always in the kitchen helping, and I remember making chili the first time when I was like 4 years old.
Oh my gosh.
So I've always liked doing it, and I've always liked good food, so it was a way to eat good and not go out.
Well, that's really cool to start so young. So this seems probably like a very natural progression to you to have the site.
Yeah, the whole part about not going out. So this is how many years ago?
8 years.
8 years ago.
Yeah.
My memory is fading me. But so she's cooking a ton of food, and going out to dinner in San Francisco is like $150 a night 8 years ago. And so I was like, you know what? I want to eat at Chez Denise. That's what it was. My favorite restaurant is Chez Denise. Let's stay home and eat. And it kind of became, that's part of the genesis of the name, if you will.
Yes, that's I was going to ask you where Chez came from, and that's kind of, is that when you segued into this being more of a couple thing? Because it started out as just you, Denise, is that right?
Yeah, and we wanted Chez
Denise obviously was taken.
It was taken because it's a restaurant in France, and
Chez nous is like Chez nous is Chez us in French, but that's taken.
That was taken.
So basically, like everyone else, process of elimination.
Yeah. What can we find that's available? This mixture of French and English, that'll work.
Yes, but then Chez US, cheeses, it's cool.
I think it works. I love it.
Yeah.
So tell me, what kind of recipes do you share on Chez?
It's mostly just stuff that we eat at home, like flavors that we like, maybe from places we've gone before, or Lenny's Portuguese, and on my mother's side is Basque, so I try to incorporate flavors from both of those regions.
Yeah.
But I try to make it simple, easy recipes.
Yeah.
And approachable, and I think it's more comfort food. I'd rather have like peasant style food than a little tiny morsel on a plate type of meal.
Yeah, I know how you feel. That's good.
But it's just everyday stuff that we eat, really.
That's great. What's your favorite part about food blogging so far?
I like the cooking, definitely, and definitely the photography are the parts I enjoy the most.
Feeding me,
What about you, Lenny? Is that your favorite part? Is the eating part?
being fed, correct? Yes, very much so. No, it's yeah, it's good.
And anything that you don't like so much about food blogging?
Um, I I guess the thing that bothers me the most is I feel like there's kind of a lack of community as it becomes more competitive. It has definitely changed a lot from 8 years ago, because now everyone is trying to do it as a living, and it's much more competitive. And sometimes I feel like I have to do it. It's like, oh, maybe I don't want to do a post this week, but there's that, oh, I need to do it.
You got to stay up with the crowd.
I think that's because overall I really enjoy it, or I wouldn't be doing it.
Right.
And I think I got to that point where it was like I'm either doing it for myself or I'm doing it for other people, and I had to make that choice. And I was like, well, I enjoy doing it, so I'll keep doing it. And it's rewarding. Like, I get people that email me and say, oh, I love that recipe, or, I did this. It's always very positive. So that's really nice. And we've met great people through the blog.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so that's been a nice part.
That's great. Lenny, were you going to say something?
So what I was going to say was, once you're, and I've always kind of said this to her, I said, look, if this is a hobby or is it your job? Because once your hobby becomes your job, it's no longer really fun.
Yeah.
Like I've been doing video stuff for like 20 years, and it's sort of like, well, why don't you do more of it for fun? Well, because it's just not fun anymore.
Right.
Kind of, like in some capacity. So you've got to be really careful there. So
Don't you think that's true about anything, though? I mean, I think I have this tendency to romanticize anything, but you could talk about how much you could, wanted to be a pilot your whole life, and then and you go through all this training, and they train a lot, and they go through these really rigorous certification, which of course I want them to.
Yeah.
But then all they are is like taxi drivers.
Yeah, that's true. It's glorified taxi drivers.
The plane just drives itself.
It's going to come down your back right now, lady.
Yeah. So I mean, I just think it's easy to romanticize any career and go, oh God, if I could just only do that, then my life would be happy. And and then you would get into that and spend all that time getting there, and it's just like, oh, okay, I got to do one thing after the other over and over and over again.
Yeah. I completely agree. I mean, and it's the journey.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you get to the destination, it's rewarding and fulfilling.
Yeah.
But now you've got to find another goal. You've attained that goal.
Yeah.
So now there's a huge void that needs to be filled again.
So finding some way to find joy in the processes, and while at the same time staying motivated, that's kind of the trick. Okay, well, one of the main reasons I wanted to have you on the show today was to talk about video blogging because, oh wait, I even said that wrong, is to talk about, what do you even call that? Is it, I know we talked about this, food photography. Is it food videography then?
I think that you can do that. Yeah, it's a niche on the whole video. Well, you can be a wedding videographer, you can be a corporate videographer. So I would say that you are totally okay in calling it food video.
Okay, so we'll maybe coin a new term today. Wouldn't that be cool? Pioneering new fields.
Well, yes, we can do that.
So I know that's a topic that's been of interest to a lot of food bloggers lately, and so that's why I thought it would be great to have you two on the show because you guys are very experienced in this area. Can you talk a little bit about your experience with video and food and all of that?
Well, Denise has been wanting me to do it for, how long has this blog been around? Yeah, I think it's been fun to do, and I like doing it. I've been doing it for a long time. Primarily, our primary business is a live webcasting business, which we've been doing for 13 years. So it's a little bit of a different animal in that it's like live video production, as opposed to sort of artistic post-production, sort of creative editorial stuff.
Yeah, there's a big difference between those two, I would think.
Yeah, and personally for me, I kind of like the excitement and the energy of something live because there's just a lot more on the line and it's kind of riskier, so you're totally on edge the whole time. But we've been having fun. Actually, we'll go back to the mixed conference that we did.
Yeah, I was there
3 years ago.
3 years ago, and that was sort of the first time that I got on the main stage there, which I really like doing. I never do it, but I like doing it.
Yeah,
I actually
you're very good.
I prefer to speak to a group of people than to actually have myself recorded or be in front of a camera.
Isn't that interesting? That's what you do for a living.
Yeah, we could totally analyze that, and I'd welcome any feedback, any psychiatrists out there. Feel free.
That's fine, but I'd have to charge you extra for that.
That's an extra one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically the group which is how we met, is started from mixed, where we wanted to keep the conversation going, and I don't know, I do love video. I like working with video. I've got tons of experience. I know what all of those things in the pull down menu means.
I see. So you have this experience in the video production field, and so it just seemed like a natural fit to have you guys start doing some
Correct.
food video.
Yeah, actually specifically online, so how video comes online, like I said, that was my sort of idea back in '94, was to make a television channel back then online, but...
Well, I think when we really started doing it for Chez Us is when we did that video for Dominique.
That was, yes.
A friend in France we went and shot because he needed someone to shoot a video for him, and we were like, oh, all right.
You know what?
So that's when we got the 7D.
That's when we got the 7D, which those cameras, the DSLRs are great, and I love what they can do and how much they can help people. They're very difficult to shoot with, and that was our first shoot. I mean, we didn't get paid for it. We just went out there to do it. But, when you're taking up people's time, you better come out with a product. And so I will say, crapping my pants. And I still do that on a regular basis. I mean, that's what you know when you're alive. Like right now, there's a little bit of that. And that was clean. So, but it's hard. So people are like, here you go. I'm going to let you into my world and my life for a day.
Yeah.
Don't F it up.
Yeah. And that's when we came home and started shooting some stuff for Chez Us.
Yeah, and it was fun.
Because it was fun, and we enjoyed doing the video for Dominique.
So thank you for the information about your background in video. The reason I really wanted to talk with you is because a lot of bloggers have this goal to do more video on their sites. And I'm just curious how important you think that is for for a food blogger who's interested in this. Should they take on the effort of adding more video to their site?
I think that's a great question, and I think the short answer is maybe yes, right?
Maybe yes.
So, yes, everyone. You should go do that. You should become a professional writer. You should become a developer for your site. You should become a photographer, and now become a videographer.
No problem.
No problem, yeah. And oh, by the way, one of those or two of those are harder than the other ones, right? Writing words, taking pictures. The great thing is it's fast. You can bang it out fairly quickly. But video, it's still kind of like, it's still a beast. And that's, I think, where the opportunity is.
I think it's a good venue to start adding to your sites. And I say that because there are more and more brands that are asking for this. And they aren't going to want just some sloppy video that you shot and threw together in 2 minutes. They're going to want something more polished. But I am definitely finding more and more brands asking, can you guys do video also? And it can be anywhere from a 2-minute video how-to to maybe a 15-second social media video. So I think it may not be the main focus of your blog, but I think it's a good habit.
Don't get me wrong. I think we agree. I just didn't get to that part. So do it because you want to do it, and do it because you're interested in doing it. And now that you've decided that you are interested in doing it, I think that's where the biggest opportunity still is. And because it is difficult, it's not a downside. The upside is it's difficult. Meaning, if you are committed to it and you do it, then you will get paid more. Ultimately, really, a lot of that comes down to it, right? You want to make a living, you can charge more for it. And we can talk about, there are differences in, here's $250 for your video that's not very well produced that brands will pay for, as opposed to here's $1,000 for something that looks better.
Right.
Here's $5,000 for something that's real, nicely done, but not super awesome because they know. And then, $10,000 might be because it's really not about the video, it's about the person, or the person itself then becomes the brand that brand wants to associate, if that makes sense. So they're really paying for your audience and not for your video production quality, right? Because if you're some well-known blogger and you do a crappy video, it doesn't actually matter because you're still going to get that reach. And that's what the brand will pay for. Did that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I get that. In other words, your audience is a part of it, but I would think your videography skills are a part of that as well. So it's a formula.
It's definitely fun. Like in our case, we don't have a tremendous amount of reach, so people might be paying for a video that might look better than what someone else can do.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and I would think a lot of brands probably don't have like a videographer on staff, so they probably love the idea of working with a blogger that already has those skills.
Everything is outsourced, of course.
Yes.
Yeah. Even for companies, like no one's got a videographer on staff, unless they do, at which point then they're a big company, right. At which point, that's actually why our other business existed, because they don't want to go in-house.
Right. What about for social media? Do you think there's an impact for doing video on social, like, Instagram has video now. Is that something worth doing?
I haven't checked that out.
Instagram's video? Yeah. No, you mean Instagram or Twitter?
Instagram video. I was thinking Twitter video.
Wait a minute. I thought Twitter had Vine.
Twitter bought Vine, but they just released, so everyone does everything. Twitch is going to have a video channel. Who else? Like everyone's going to do video and everyone's going to have video and all of that stuff.
So you should do it.
I'll get right down the brass tacks.
Okay, go for it.
Free marketing tools, why not?
They're free marketing tools, why not? But by the same token, this is my opinion. There's only one channel that actually pays you money to produce video. Which one is that?
I would say Facebook. No.
You get a check from Facebook?
Yeah.
Who sends you a check?
For video?
Yeah.
YouTube.
Bingo. Who else?
Who else would send a check for video? Maybe Vimeo? I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah, that's right. So that's exactly right. So my theory is, yes, we're all going to, it kind of gets back to, you're going to spread yourself way too thin.
Yeah. And
then ask yourself, who's actually paying for this?
Right.
And I still believe that YouTube is kind of the force or the place where you should put this stuff, because they actually send us checks. No one else. Facebook doesn't send us a check.
I got you. Okay.
Snapchat is cool, but they don't send me a check.
Right.
Twitter never sent me a check. I mean, it's not about the check, but it's sort of like, if you want to build a brand, if you want to make money, if you want to actually, you can make money do a couple of ways. You can make money by building your channel on YouTube and go that advertising route. And you can make money by saying, hey, I want to become a producer of this stuff. I don't want to be in videos. And then you sell your services to companies.
Well, just like we talked about earlier, when you've made the decision to start this as a business and not just a hobby, I know, like back in episode 1, we talked with Tessa Arias of Handle the Heat, and she talked about being the CEO of your food blog. And so you're right. At some point, you have to look and say, what am I making money from?
That kind of goes back to the earlier conversation of, is it still fun, or do you, why do you do it? Do you enjoy it? And is it a job or a hobby? Well, it's a job that doesn't pay. And that's called a hobby by the IRS.
Yeah.
So it's kind of finding that balance. So I don't know. Do you like the tone that this is going down, Denise?
Well, let's move on to the next question. So don't you think that having a video on your blog can kind of help personalize you and your brand to your audience?
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Well, we talked about it in the group, right? I think people don't want to be in, myself included, don't want to be in the video. But you have to be in the video so that people connect, because it's not really about the sandwich you're making.
Yeah.
It's really about you and the story behind how you make that sandwich.
So let's clarify that for everybody, because there's this tendency, if you have a video on your site, that it would just show your hands making the recipe, which is probably step 1 in video. I don't know, maybe step 1 might be taking a few of the pictures that you've shot without your hand even in them.
Yeah.
And piecing those together. Step 2 would be an actual video of your hands moving around. And step 3, I think what you're saying, Lenny, is to actually show yourself, your face in the video.
Yeah, totally. And there are techniques that are really easy that I think that anyone could learn how to shoot these videos with, themselves introducing, hey, I'm going to show you how I like to make this sandwich.
Yeah.
And then you go into making the sandwich, and then you end it. I hope you liked your sandwich. Come check out my blog for the recipe.
Yeah.
It's a pretty simple formula, and I think that's what people don't know, or people also don't know how to dissect a video. And once you turn off the audio and the volume, and that's one great way to start seeing these things in a different light. And once you kind of figure out the little pieces, then you can easily sort of backfill that, or figure out the formula.
Well, I think that's great that you said that, because I was hoping that we could give a little bit of like video 101 with just a little bit of terminology. I don't want to overwhelm anybody, but like, maybe going over things like jump cuts and, at least the terminology of what that stuff means.
Yeah. So I think the two biggest offenders are definitely the jump cut. So let's back up. So the first thing that people really usually do is they'll stand in the kitchen in the middle of the frame, probably up against a wall.
Yeah.
There's definitely going to be a broom behind them. There'll be
some dirty dishes on the counter.
I love it. I love that, though.
Yeah, I know you do.
There's a trash bin. I mean, we've done it. Those are mistakes. But, I think people are so focused on being in the middle of the frame, and they're so focused on themselves and the subject that they kind of forget the bigger picture. Right. So that's kind of the first biggest mistake. So instead of being in the kitchen saying, I'm going to make a sandwich, obviously you're going to do that in the kitchen. Why don't you go, say, outside? Or if you like gardening, you pretend you're kind of doing some gardening and look over at the camera and say, wow, I'm hungry. I'm going to go make myself a kitchen. Let me show you how I do that. And so that's kind of your opening shot. And then the other thing is people don't tend to have what's called B-roll. And so when someone is speaking in a shot, it's called A-roll. And when there's something else that doesn't have people or voices, where you can see people speaking, it's called B-roll. It's kind of secondary backup footage. Well, it's not backup footage. It's secondary footage that helps you tell your story.
Right.
So A is not better than B. It's not, 1 or 2 or anything like that. It's really just A versus B. And so the way that you would do that is you just get close-ups. So you cut away from, I'm going to make a sandwich, and then you cut away to some B-roll of, let me know when it doesn't make sense. Let me know when it doesn't make sense. So you cut away to a close-up of you putting peanut butter with a knife on the bread, and then you might cut away to something else and then cut back to your face.
Yeah.
Did that make any sense?
That makes sense, yeah. It makes sense to me. Now, what about the jump cut in the middle of all that?
So those wouldn't be jump cuts. So the jump cut would be the camera doesn't move, you're standing in the middle of the shot, and then you say you flub or you say something else, and then you have to cut it. And then a jump cut is when you have two clips or two video clips that look too similar, and so that it looks awkward. So
it's like a little jump in the video.
There's a jump, yeah. So like in one you have your hands in your pocket, and the other one you're putting it on the bread. You put in the peanut butter on the bread, and it just looks awkward. That said, jump cuts aren't necessarily bad. There are a lot of really cool techniques to use jump cuts, and a lot of these guys or people on YouTube that interview themselves, those are filled with jump cuts. But it's part of the story.
It sounds like a little bit like everything else on our blogs, like photography. If you're going to shoot out in daylight, you need to look like you did it on purpose, or whatever accident that you're working with. If it's your writing or videography, whatever. If you're going to use that tool, you got to use it purposefully.
Yeah. And it's all. It doesn't also have to be linear either, right? People can think it's like, oh, next. And that's how it presents itself, but it doesn't have to be shot that way, right? So if you're going to start with your opening shot of the finishing casserole, then obviously the casserole needs to be finished, and you need to have a picture of that. So you start with the casserole.
Right.
I'm going to show you how I made this lovely casserole, and then you go into making the casserole.
Yeah. So do you think having video on your site? I think you're saying you don't have to have video on every single post that you do. You would pick the special ones that you think would get the most bang out of the video buck.
Well, it's usually a recipe we really like. Maybe it's Christmas, some family cookie or something for Christmas, or I mean, I have a whole slew of ideas of videos that I'd like to shoot for Shayas. It's just finding the time to do it. Like,
yes.
And she points the finger at me.
But I find video is a great way to connect and add that personality to your site.
Absolutely.
And our readers like it. Like, for a while, we were doing it kind of consistently, maybe 6 years ago. Not like every week, but more consistent, and people started like, hey, you haven't done anything in a while, like, what's going on? Or so I think people definitely connect to you that way. But I don't know, we don't have any, we just will be like, hey, let's make a video for this.
It's totally random.
Yeah.
It's totally random. But if you did have a process, well, guys like Chef John, I think every post was a video. So, I mean, he was really committed to it. And now he's got a huge body of work, which is great. And his videos, I love his videos because they're totally simple.
Yeah.
And more importantly, he started with a webcam, right? So he didn't even have a camera, and he's probably got, I don't know, 600-700 videos now.
Wow, that's a lot of videos.
Yeah, and so and the formula that he uses is still the same. It's all B-roll, meaning it's just him and his hands, and he just does voiceover, which is just. He might start to be in a couple, but I think that his formula is great. I mean, there's definitely a formula to putting this together. So it seems intimidating, but it doesn't have to be.
What do you say to the blogger who says, I can't do video because my kitchen looks terrible?
That is a great point, because I think it's weird, because if you, particularly to get a brand to give you money, you definitely want to make sure it's clean. So that said, we just shot a video for a company that was all tight, right? So they were all a bunch of tight shots. So I'm kind of experimenting with not having such wider shots. But the problem is you need those wide shots, because they give you some breathing room, and you can't, like the early DSLR stuff where everything was like shallow depth of field.
Yes.
And your eyes were bleeding.
Macro lenses, yeah.
Yeah, and so, playing with the idea of showing enough, but not so much that you have to clean the entire countertop.
But I think if someone says my kitchen's ugly, it's like
our kitchen's ugly.
Your kitchen's probably not ugly. It's probably like everyone else's kitchens. So don't let that hold you back. Like, our kitchen's nice, but I don't love it. There's things I don't like about it.
It's awkward.
And it's hard to shoot in, but we don't let that stop us. We just are like, you know what? Our kitchen's probably like everyone else's too. So.
I like what you said, Denise, because actually you could have a reader who might say, hey, my kitchen's like that. If she can do that, then I can do this too. Or this recipe.
And there's the relatability, right? So if it's an awesome, wealthy home, nice kitchen, good for you. That's awesome. I mean, that would be great. But everyone doesn't relate to that.
Right.
Everyone relates to, don't be a slob, but it's okay. No one cares.
Speaking of relatability, then I think another thing that a food blogger could be thinking, and I may be pointing fingers at myself, like, I'm so nervous about getting in front of the video camera because, I don't know, like you worried about your hair or whatever. Like, maybe I don't look like I think the person that's in front of the video should look like. And what do you tell people about that?
Marley, I can't wait for October because you're going to love my slideshow.
I can't wait.
I hate being in front of the camera, and I think it was maybe 3 or 4 videos ago. I was like, you know what? This is just who I am.
Yes.
Why do I care? Like,
right.
This is what I look like when I cook.
I don't give her a lot of choice.
I do put some lipstick on, but it's like, if you came to my house, this is the way it would be. So I want people to relate to who we are and how we process. So now I don't even let it bother me. Yeah, we have to go back and forth on that because we should do bloopers for it.
And I agree. I think that there's looking presentable, and then there's getting all dolled up.
Yeah.
And there's the urge, at least for women, to get all dolled up. And it's like, okay, you're not going to the prom. I mean, you're just showing us how to make a sandwich.
Yeah. Yes.
So, but to your point, it's really the bigger problem, and I share that. I don't really like to be in front of the camera either. I might be comfortable doing it, but that's because I've just been around cameras for 20 years, so it's not a big deal.
Yeah. And I think there's something also to be said for authenticity there as well, that, I love what you said, Denise. At some point, you have to be comfortable with yourself. This is who I am. It's almost like this space between where we are and where we wish we would be is what holds us back sometimes.
Right. Yeah, it's like, hey, this is how I make cake.
Yeah, exactly.
You either want to make this cake,
or
you don't want to make this cake. So, yeah, it definitely took me a while to get comfortable doing it. Like, I've let Lenny shoot me with no makeup on, just out of bed. He's like, hey, let's shoot a breakfast video. I'm like, really?
You look great. You look great, doll.
Aw, that's sweet. I love it.
You just have to, I think, give in.
Yeah, okay, I like that. Just be yourself.
Be natural. And then you're more approachable, and I think people will relate to realism.
Okay, so lighting is important for food photography. We know that, but what about for video?
Lighting is exactly the same. In fact, it's exactly the same. It's critical. The difference between shooting video or even professionally as opposed to photography is the notion of natural light just doesn't exist. Because you can't rely on it and it changes from second to second. Mm-hmm. So you really need to be able to control the light the whole time. So that said, if you really, the one biggest thing that you can do today is turn off the lights in the house when you're shooting videos. The nasty orange is there for a reason. Overhead lights they're just terrible.
Yeah.
So everything looks orange for a reason. That's because they light your house up nicely, but for video it doesn't work. So
you want to hear a cheap solution that we use for video now? And yes, we are doing a little bit of video, and I'll share it with you soon, Lenny and Denise. Cool. But we actually went to Costco and bought a fairly inexpensive, I think it was like a $30 LED flood lamp.
Yeah.
And we just reflected off of the big, reflector that we've got. It works great.
Perfect. You know what?
What?
So the issue with that light is it's just throwing light everywhere.
Yeah.
So go out and do a search for cinema foil.
Cinema foil.
So it's basically black aluminum foil. Uh-huh. And, actually, those LED lights probably don't get hot. So cinema foil...
doesn't get hot.
Yeah, you can wrap them around lights, but traditional lights get really hot, so cinema foil doesn't melt. So you can probably use aluminum foil. So you get aluminum foil and then you wrap it around that light, and then you can craft it and kind of point it in a direction.
Love it. What a great idea. So it's kind of an inexpensive solution.
Yeah, totally. And cinema foil is like $20, but don't waste your money. If this light doesn't get hot, the aluminum foil won't melt.
Oh, I see. And it'll help direct it in a specific area rather than have it just like disperse everywhere.
All over the place, exactly.
Yeah, excellent. That's great. And so you spoke momentarily ago about the kind of DSLR camera that you're using for shooting and equipment, and it just made me think, like, for the average person out there, should they be looking at getting a new piece of equipment, or can they shoot on their iPhone, or what kind of videos should they be using?
So I think for video cameras nowadays, I mean, DSLRs are nice. They're definitely hard, and they take a lot of work and practice. Mm-hmm. But everyone's got them, and it's easy. It's a comfort level, and you already use it for photography.
Right.
So you can kill two birds with one stone. The iPhone, if you've got an iPhone 6, I still use my 5S, and you can get some really nice looking stuff. I mean, I don't want this to come off like a Apple fanboy. Use an iPhone for your everything. But, the truth of the matter is those are great cameras, and someone in our group uses her iPhone 6, and she's actually shooting videos for brands, and all she did really was learn how to work with the window lights from the window.
Oh, wow.
And the brand was like, oh, you shot that with your iPhone? So it's less about the camera. I mean, it's a traditional, it's an old conversation, but it really is less about the camera and more about learning how to manipulate light.
And also how to hold the camera, right? Because I think you have a preference not for landscape or for portrait.
You know something, Marley? That's pretty funny. So all of these years of everyone trying to convince people that they should do video in landscape, the new kids on the block, Meerkat and Periscope, basically throw all of that out and do everything in portrait.
Get out, really?
Yeah. So I don't know if you've seen those apps, but they're just the latest live streaming apps, but everything is portrait.
Interesting. I don't feel so bad anymore.
No.
But you should shoot landscape.
If you want to, yes.
And the reason is because it fills up the frame. Right.
Well, the reason is because your television is rectangular and the long side.
Well, and so is the monitor that people are going to be looking at. It's going to be.
Yeah, right. That's yeah. Photography is traditionally portrait, and because magazines are sort of longer than are wide, but televisions and movie screens are wide.
Okay, so let's start going into post processing a little bit then too. Do you have any kind of software that you recommend, especially for people who are new at this?
Yeah, so I think that if you're just starting out, and I'm very conscious of budgets, and people just don't have a lot of money, and don't go spend a lot of money on software if you're just learning something. What I would do is use iMovie if you've got it. If you're on the PC, use Adobe Premiere Elements. That's not free. It's like $60, $70. But so there's a company that I worked for. The first company that actually invented video editing software is a company by the name of Avid Technology, and that's who I worked for like 20 years ago. And they actually just announced that they have a free version of their software. So that's actually the software that they use to edit movies in Hollywood television. So it kind of came out of favor when Final Cut Pro came along. And if you like Final Cut Pro, you can go for that, but that's $300. So I would start with something that's cheap or / affordable, and iMovie is free, is totally affordable. And this it's called Avid Media Composer. That Avid Media Composer used to be like 150 grand, so now it's free.
Oh my, that's a big reduction
Back
in
when
price.
I worked there, that's what it cost, but now it's free, and so that would be a great way to get started. And it's the same for Mac and PC, and that's why at least in the group, I recommend Premiere Elements, because it's the same. So if everyone's on the same page learning together, they can bounce ideas off each other. But a lot of people like Final Cut Pro.
Which one is the easiest?
That's $400.
Which one is the easiest, do you think?
The easiest.
I mean, like, for example, I would imagine this Avid Media Composer would have a high learning curve.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, so iMovie.
iMovie, yeah. I mean, I figured out iMovie in just a little bit of time. I'm not saying when I say figured out, I'm doing these little air quotes that you can't see, I'm sure there's a lot of things I could do that I don't do, but I'm just saying I was able to produce a very short movie in hardly any time. It was great.
Yeah, it's totally great. You do a couple of shots. Here's a shot. Hi, I'm going to make a sandwich. Cut to your hands making a sandwich. Cut to you opening a jar of something. Cut to a visual of you. I love this sandwich. It's delicious. And you take a bite. And you just basically lay them down in iMovie, and it's a piece of cake. Yeah.
Okay. So what about the music that accompanies? Because you got to have music in the video, right?
Yeah. So music, I think, is critical, and it's a good point, because the one thing that you do want to keep in mind is it's nice to cut a video to some popular song that you like and everyone likes, and you can kind of jump in on that. But if you post it to YouTube, you will not make any money because of the copyrights.
Right.
So. And if you think that you're going to go down this path of creating a body of work or a bunch of videos that you want to have value for yourself, you want to make sure that you have the royalty or royalty-free music, or that you bought a song that you like, that you have the rights to. So that way, that's how you get a check. So if all of them that send you a check, we get a check from Google that says, here you go.
Yeah.
And that's because we have the rights to all of the music and the rights to the video.
Well, that leads me to another question, which is a little bit different, but on the same line, and that is, do you think it's good for if you know that you're going to do several videos, is it good to have a theme? It would be tempting, I think, like as a music as fonts, to pick a different one for each. But maybe is it good to have like let's create a same song that we do with every video, and the same look and feel, and then obviously the video, it's different, but the recipe's different.
Yes, I do. I think that when you're discovering, it's probably the same when you're writing just starting your blog and you're learning how to write or learning your voice or whatever. That's going to change over time, but there's definitely a pattern, and people like consistency.
Yeah.
They like that warm and fuzzy, jingle that represents you and whatever so there's an expectation that meets. So yeah, I think it could evolve over time. Your logo evolves, everything evolves, But people like that consistency, and going with a theme, I think, is a good idea. If you're doing a large body of, if your plan is to go down and do your own show.
Yes. Denise, what do you think about that?
I definitely agree. But sometimes, though, I think each recipe, like different music goes better with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I see.
Like cocktails might use a different type of music or...
Okay, well, that's two different things, right? So, I mean, if we're talking about just kind of making a cocktail video and then making a dessert video and then making a dinner, you could use that same theme music for each of those three, right? And or you don't even have to have music sometimes. I mean, music could just be in the opener.
Right.
We've seen some videos recently.
Like that.
Yeah, we just did one that we had added music and it actually distracted.
So and
so we took it out because it was a very, step-by-step type of thing.
That's good. It sounds like people have options. If they want to switch music each video, they can, but if they want to have a theme, that's fine as well.
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Make it personal.
I have another process question, and that is, what about these files can get really large. Should people think about hosting, or should they think about, even the process of what do I do with that file if it makes my computer crash?
No, that's huge. You're right. I mean, it's the files get massive, and the first thing that I would do is buy an external hard drive.
Okay.
And store everything on that. So just a USB 3 external hard drive. You can get 2 terabytes now for $150 or $100. I don't even know. Mm-hmm. And use that as your main sort of storage device for your media, and that way it's always there. Mm-hmm. And then, as far as a backup strategy, you can buy 2 and copy things over. I heard your last podcast, and the cloud is great for photos, but it will cost you a fortune for video. So I think you just need to put these on hard drives and put them in the safe or something. I wouldn't worry too much about it, though. So if we're just kind of getting started off, don't get intimidated. Go buy a hard drive, plug it in, use it as where all of your media is, and create a folder for each recipe.
Okay.
And you're good to go. Don't, the process can be complicated enough. Don't overcomplicate it so that you're just intimidated or burnt out by it.
Now for the real controversial stuff. Should you upload it to YouTube or Vimeo?
So no, I prefer YouTube, as I said.
Yeah.
I think YouTube has larger reach, larger discoverability. Granted, it's crowded, but if you are consistent and you keep putting out a regular product every Monday, every Friday, every Wednesday that people have grown to expect with the music that they like and have grown to expect, I think you'll do quite well. They send us a check. Vimeo doesn't send a check. So I think, the controversy, I think Vimeo is, okay, here's where, I think Vimeo is for snobs. There, I said it.
Okay. We hear it today on Chop to Con.
No.
YouTube's reach is bigger, and when I go to look for things, I go to YouTube first. I never think of going to Vimeo unless I'm looking for something that's more artsy, and I might know they're on there already.
Right.
But that's never my choice to go to.
Right. So let me back up on that. So the premise behind Vimeo back in the day was they offered a higher quality video experience than YouTube did. Mm-hmm. And just the way that they compressed everything, and it just was higher quality. That was it. It was also a lot slower, but a lot of professionals and artists and whatnot, they preferred Vimeo to host their videos as opposed to YouTube. So that's kind of where that whole thing started.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I say snobs, I say it jokingly, but that's really where people, but today, the quality is exactly identical across the board, everywhere you go.
Excellent. And the reason we're talking about that at this particular spot is because I wouldn't think you would recommend that people would upload their video to WordPress. You would really like them to have it on something like YouTube and then embed that into their site. Is that what you recommend?
I think that's pretty much the approach for sort of a consumer-driven food blog.
Yeah, and you need to build your channel because that's how you're going to be found on YouTube.
Right.
It's like your resume of videos.
Right. So that's all. That we'll have to have another conversation on YouTube, I think, because that could be a whole other conversation. Creating a channel and marketing.
Sure.
Yeah. But we're coming to the end of the interview, so I want to ask you guys, what's coming up next for you? Anything you can share?
Well, a few things. So we are speaking at an event in October. We're very excited.
Exactly. In fact, this is a great opportunity to announce that you guys are going to be speaking on video production at Chopped Conference in October.
Yeah, yes. We're psyched about that. And, I think with your permission, I think that this is, we would like to announce that, as you said, in the premise behind this podcast is people are interested. And we're convinced that there are 5 steps that everyone can take to create simple, effective videos that may lead to a path of actually charging for them and making money from that. So we are experimenting with this idea of learning to shoot food. So we are starting learntoshootfood.com.
Excellent.
And yeah, so people can learn, that's really a place where we can hopefully build a community if there's interest and learn how to shoot food either through video or through photography. But we're going to kick it off with some video courses.
Oh, that's so exciting. I'm always happy for places or opportunities for food bloggers to work together because we can learn so much more that way, I think.
Yeah, and what we've learned in the last 3 years from the group, our Google group, is that it's been amazing to me. It's so predictable when someone new comes in what their first video is going to look like.
I know. Yeah.
It's going to have dissolves. Everyone's going to be in the middle. There's going to be a broom.
Yeah.
A trash bin, and then it really takes like 4 or 5 videos to have, to go from that to something that is pretty awesome. And that's been great to watch and really rewarding at least for me.
Yeah, and everyone is growing so much in that group, and they're all making money at it now, which is totally amazing. And they're shooting with different cameras or phones but they've grown so much. It's kind of, I'm always in an awe, and I'm like, wow. It was a fast learning curve.
I'm in awe that they keep coming back after 3 years.
Well, and I think it's a tribute to you guys because you're such great teachers, and you keep it fun too. So that's really important.
Yeah, fun and informal. So so we want to basically distill what we've learned from teaching people there into Learn to Shoot Food.
Okay, so I'm really excited. I can't wait to see that. Now speaking of fun, I've got some fun questions for you guys at the end of the interview here. So what's the one food item you can't live without? And let's start with Denise.
Thank you.
For just eating?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. What else would you do with food?
Well, throw it at me.
Yes, I might want to hear about that one too.
I probably can't live without wine, chocolate. What else? Oh, potatoes. I love potatoes.
I love potatoes.
Cooking, I would definitely need olive oil, good salt.
I love salt. Denise.
Wow,
well, I don't want I mean.
That's pretty granular, no pun intended. Jeez, good salt. That's a tough act to follow, huh?
I don't know. I think that's really it.
I can't live if living is without you.
You can eat a lot with good olive oil and salt.
You can.
Yeah, totally. So I mean, you could even use olive oil for your skin like they did in the Roman days.
Yep. Okay, Lenny, your turn.
Yeah. I don't know. What do I love? I love bananas. I love potatoes. I'll tell you, we've been making a bunch of mac and cheese for these videos we've been doing.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the last time we had mac and cheese, but man, that's delicious.
It's so good.
I love, it's like a ton of it, and there's just way too much, and I'm training again, and I'm like, oh. But so I love cheese. Yeah. Definitely love wine. I love souffle, getting away from the comfort food.
Okay, what's the favorite app on your phone?
I like Instagram and Vesco for editing. And rest of them I really don't spend much time on.
It took me a while to actually figure out Visco, but now that I've got it, I really do like it a lot.
Yeah, and I keep trying other ones. I'm trying Prime right now, but I always go back.
Yeah. What about you, Lenny?
I think I like Instagram the most. That's the one I use as far as even like as far as social networks. I take Facebook on and off. I just, like I said, I try to be private.
Yeah.
But I like Instagram and I like reading the news through Flipboard.
Flipboard?
Boring.
No, that's not boring. You got to get the news in somehow.
Well, you don't know what kind of news I'm reading.
Oh, okay. Well, I also feel like I was expecting you to say iMovie as your favorite app.
You know, iMovie for the. I'll tell you. I'm glad you brought that up because when that thing came out, I was in love. That thing is amazing. It's so easy. It's so fast. It's quick, and the combination of that and Instagram video. Uh-huh. I learned personally a ton. I don't like to edit. I'm more of a shooter than an editor because I think the hard part is kind of deciding what to leave in. This is going to be a long-winded answer. What I learned from Instagram and that iMovie app was how to edit, because if you only have 15 seconds and you've got a minute worth of footage, you really distill the important part.
Yeah.
But yes, that iMovie app I think is the best editing app on any of these mobile devices that I've seen.
Excellent. So it's good for people to know if they can use their iPhone and they can even edit it on their, iMovie for iPhone.
You know what? I don't think it's free anymore.
Oh, but still, if there's a fee, it's like probably $5.
It's
right?
like $5. Yeah, it's like $5.
And that's like next to free.
Yeah.
Although Avid Media Composer is cheaper than iPhone for.
No, you brought up a good point. It'll be harder to learn the Media Composer than iMovie.
Okay, so it's probably worth spending the $5 for it then.
Yes.
Do you guys have time for TV at all? And if you do, what's your favorite show?
We watch TV.
We watch tons of TV.
I think my favorite ones are, I like Mad Men, House of Cards.
Yeah, me too.
Orange is the New Black. Guilty pleasures. On the airplane, I always watch the housewife shows on Bravo.
But only when you're traveling, huh?
Yeah, only when I'm on like a Virgin, because they have so many selections, and it's always embarrassing because you're like, oh, the guy next to me is like, I can't believe she's watching that.
That's trash, yeah.
Yeah, but he's watching Fox News, so that's okay.
Yeah. Exactly. What about you, Lenny? Do you have a favorite?
You know, I pretty boring. I like, The Daily Show is not boring, but I like Bill Maher, I like Bill Moyer. I like watching documentaries and serious issues.
It's so funny because you seemed like you're so happy and funny all the time, and so I wasn't expecting documentaries, but I like documentaries too.
I'm conflicted inside.
You are conflicted.
It's a facade.
So you watch Real Time then?
I do watch Real Time with Bill Maher. I do.
Yeah, he's a hoot.
He is.
Yeah.
He's kind of losing. He's losing it. He's going a little crazy, but it's okay.
That's okay.
We just started watching Chef Table, which is really good on Netflix.
I just started watching that. I watched the first episode the other night. I was very impressed.
Totally. You know what? I was too. A lot of times those things are kind of pretentious, but so far so good. I mean, they've been really kind of nice.
Yeah. I really like I actually wrote down a couple of quotes that they said because they were talking about, when you've got a passion for something and you just follow that passion, I think it was the mistake that the guy made with the lemon cookie. That was really impressive to me. Like
super clever.
He turned that into a genius,
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah. I like that. Okay, great. So how can people find you all online?
They can find us on Chezus.
Spell that.
CHEZUS.
Okay. .com?
.com. And then on the website, it lists everywhere we're at. Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram. Well, my Instagram is under my name, Denise_Woodward.
Okay.
And Lenny's is Laudolino.
Yes. So I used to be the only Laudolino on the internet. Now I think there are 5. But that's funny. Funny, if you do a search for Lenny Ferreira on Facebook, it's all women in Brazil. Apparently,
interesting.
It's a popular woman's name in Brazil. Really weird.
That is very weird.
But yeah, Laudalino.
Excellent. Well, Denise and Lenny, I've had such a great time talking with you. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you. And we'll see you in October.
Looking forward to it.
Thanks, Denise and Lenny, for being my guest on today's episode of the Chopped Podcast. If you were out running around and couldn't write down something important, don't worry, we took the notes for you. Just head on over to choppedcon.com, where I put up links for each show, including the stuff we talked about today, and more information about our guests. I hope you're loving the Chopped Podcast. If so, it would mean the world to me if you'd head over to iTunes or Stitcher and give it a review. You can do that right now. Also, you can spread the word about the Chopped Podcast using @ChoppedCon on Twitter or Instagram, or even Facebook. Your shout-outs really mean a lot. You know, you inspire me, so I hope today's show is helpful and inspirational to you as well. Thanks so much for listening, and have a great week.